Businesses like CUMAC offer a wide array of critical services for struggling New Jersey families: food, clothes, counseling, and more. They do everything they can, and they stretch every dollar they have to serve their clients. But it's becoming increasingly difficult for organizations like CUMAC to meet the growing demand as unemployment rises and states and local communities are strained for resources. The situation has only gotten worse. As the White House and Republican leaders in the Senate refused to negotiate a new stimulus and sat on their hands for months, the $600 a week in expanded unemployment benefits expired this past Friday. Thousands of New Jersey families are literally running out of money to pay for basic necessities. And affording to keep a roof over their heads will become that much harder when federal eviction ban lapsing and foreclosure protections ending at the end of the month. According to a July Census Bureau report, 26 million adults reported going without enough food to eat. In the greatest country on the face of the planet, 26 million adults go without enough food to eat. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that New Jersey's SNAP population likely grew from 661,000 to 718,000 between February and May. That's nearly a 10% increase. Those numbers are sure to rise. And yet, Republicans in Washington continue to waste precious time arguing amongst themselves over what to cut versus what to provide as people needlessly suffer in the midst of a pandemic. To give you an idea of how out to lunch and out of touch they are with reality and what's happening on the ground to real, everyday, regular people, the proposal put forth last week by the Republican leader, Senator Mitch McConnell, offers zero additional funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or as we call it, SNAP. It offers nothing more for other vital food assistance programs that benefit children and local food banks. Instead, Republicans plan to double the tax break for business lunches from 50 to 100%. It's called the 3-martini lunch, which is why we have these glasses here. You're going to go ahead and spend $3 billion to give a tax credit for a 3-martini lunch, but you have zero on this side of the table. This is what feeds families. This feeds no one, but it costs $3 billion. As if people aren't going out to have their 3-martini lunch because they're not getting a bigger tax credit. This is where my Republican colleagues are at. Not a penny more for families going hungry, but corporate executives lucky enough to still have jobs during this crisis get free 3-martini lunches. That's absurd. But that says all you need to know about Mitch McConnell's priorities and why we're stuck in this mess. I and my fellow Democrats are demanding more. The American people are demanding more, and they need our help. Congress must pass a comprehensive stimulus package that extends the increased unemployment benefits, not cuts them. We need greater housing protection for renters, homeowners, and seniors to halt the impending storm of evictions and foreclosures. I have several bills that do that are being negotiated as part of this package. We need to address the stark reality that if you're black or brown, you're more likely to be infected or die from COVID-19. We need more resources to support our hospitals and nursing homes, to ramp up testing and vaccine production, to help struggling small businesses and transit systems, to close the digital divide so no student is left behind as schools try to figure out what to do. If that's going to include distance learning, you cannot presume that every child has a computer and internet access to get that distance learning. And for childcare, so parents who do have a job can can go back to work when their job calls. And yes, we need more funding for food assistance programs so children and families don't go hungry during this crisis. And organizations like CUMAC aren't crushed by the overwhelming demand. But we also need to alleviate the strain on state and local governments. Instead of developing a national response to a national emergency, the president pushed that off on frontline cities, counties, and states to figure out how to deal in the pandemic. But they're running out of money, with costs to contain the virus soaring and revenues plummeting. Already, nearly 1.5 million state and local workers have been furloughed or laid off, I should say. And that's only since February. And double the total local public sector jobs we lost during the entire Great Recession more than a decade ago. It would be, as I have said before, the height of irony, and a horrible one at that, for the men and women who we've needed the most, first responders, paramedics, public health nurses, and others, to be the ones fired as a result of the economic distress that the virus has created. We're talking first responders, teachers, nurses, public health, and other essential workers. We need them on the job, not on the unemployment line. That's why any new stimulus package must include money for state and local governments. But so far, the Trump administration, the Republicans in the Senate, are offering zero, not another dime. That will likely further strain places like CUMAC as funding that they rely on dries up, essential city, county, and state services are slashed, and more are unemployed. That's why I'm leading a bipartisan effort to deliver $500 billion to frontline states, counties, and municipalities. Every single town, city, and county, regardless of its size, would qualify for direct funding. No one is left out. The SMART Act targets these federal dollars to the areas with greatest need based on infection rates and lost revenues. This flexible funding can help avoid tax hikes and service cuts, pay for expanded testing and contact tracing, provide additional support to local food pantries, help small businesses, and better serve residents. Unfortunately, we can't do any of those things if the President and the Senate Majority Leader don't get their priorities straight. In the midst of a national pandemic and economic crisis, we must focus our limited resources on the most vulnerable and the people and places who need the help the most. No one should be getting rich off the suffering of others. Now, I had a phone call with Senator Schumer this morning, and one of the biggest sticking points, Mayor, Mark Meadows, the President's Chief of Staff, and Secretary Mnuchin, they keep insisting nothing for state and federal funding. Well, how do they think we're going to survive this? There's a reason that 3 Republicans are on this bill before Senator McConnell told Republicans stop signing on to the Menendez-Cassidy bill. Senator from Mississippi, Senator from Louisiana, Senator from Maine. They know what they're already suffering. And how about states like Arizona and Florida and Texas? Those aren't blue states. They are ravaging with the crisis right now. Luckily, we have our priorities straight here in New Jersey. State and local leaders took early, prudent steps to flatten the curve, prevent our hospitals from being overrun, drive down our infection rates, and save lives. Our fellow New Jerseyans continue to make enormous personal and financial sacrifices. The overwhelming majority are practicing social distancing, wearing masks, and New Jersey is a much better place today than if it had not followed these rules. If other states had followed our lead, I truly believe the worst would be behind us. Instead, virus outbreaks across the country continue to put us at risk and drag our economy down. And people die. People are right to be angry and frustrated. But when I return to Washington this afternoon, I'm not going to stop fighting until we get the resources we need in New Jersey to weather this horrible storm. Together, I believe we'll not only get through the crisis, but we'll eventually come out stronger on the other side. And in order to do that, We need some great leaders, people who are willing to make principled decisions, even though they may not be the popular ones, but they are the ones that save lives, drive down infection rates, and prepare us for a better day. And the next person you're here is someone who is exactly that type of leader, Mayor Sire.